Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just had one of the best years we've ever seen from an NBA player. He led the Thunder to 68 wins while averaging nearly 33 points a game, which earned him both the scoring title and MVP awards. Then he averaged 30 in the playoffs while taking OKC to their first title, adding a Finals MVP to the resume, and he capped it off by being named the cover athlete for NBA 2K26 as he single-handedly shut down all of those future face of the league talks. But what if I told you that less than a month after being drafted, a 19-year-old Shai walked into Summer League and showed us exactly what he was gonna be? Depending on who you ask, you'll get completely different answers on what we can actually learn from the NBA Summer League. The Las Vegas Summer League was created in 2004, and by 2018, all 30 teams were a part of it. Since then, it's become a routine part of the offseason schedule, and for many prospects, it's the first taste they'll get of professional basketball. Between highly touted young stars proving their status and undrafted players fighting for a roster spot, you'll see each team play at least 5 games. But do these games actually teach us anything about these players, or is it just filler entertainment? If you're looking at the numbers, the sample size just simply isn't big enough to draw conclusions, as one hot or cold shooting game can completely skew the results. And in the same line of thinking, you won't really be able to establish a pattern of how much one individual player impacts the team because of how many different looks are in and out of the lineup, and again, the limited number of games. That doesn't mean we can't draw anything from the Summer League though. For one, this is the first time we'll ever see how these guys process the game at an NBA level. How quickly do they make decisions? How quickly do they adjust to different coverages or matchups? Are they consistently in the right spot at the right time, or do they look lost? Secondly, this is where we can really compare their athletic and physical qualities to other NBA caliber profiles. And I don't just mean things that jump off the screen like speed, strength, or verticality. I mean the functional side of athleticism like flexibility, balance, and coordination. This right here is where Shai, in just 4 games, completely popped off the screen and basically showed us the entire toolbox that would one day lead to one of the all-time great seasons. It's no secret that Shai's superpower as a player is his ability to get downhill. He's led the league in drives per game in 5 straight seasons, and that's laid the foundation for his entire offensive arsenal. The key to his downhill attack is his ability to change speeds, starting and stopping on a whim as he knifes his way through gaps in the defense. And he had those tools as a 19-year-old, starting a drive right, stopping and pulling back into an immediate drive left as he teleports past his defender and creates a wide open 3. From day one, you could see the burst. One moment, he's slowly jogging the ball up court, then all of a sudden he's shifting gears and hitting top speed as he carves out a path to the basket. Even from a complete standstill, all it took was that initial step for him to build up a head of steam, and he was just as effective taking that first step to his left or right, so by the time a defender realized which way he was going, it was probably too late to react. So, just like we see from him today, it was all about weaponizing a live dribble to set up his defender, then exploding into driving lanes when they least expected it. His handle wasn't quite as advanced as it is now, but he still had similar setups, like a right hand hesitation as he gets low to the ground, truly threatening a right hand drive, only to cross back to his left, beat his defender, and find an angle to finish. And I want to take a second to focus on just how low to the ground he gets on some of these drives. His chest is nearly parallel to the court as he takes that first step, which not only helps him hit that top speed quicker, it gives him access to all sorts of different angles. The main thing I want you to focus on though is how effortless it was. Shai didn't need a series of size ups to get to the rim. All it took was 1, maybe 2 moves, and he was there. And this actually reminds me of something Steve Nash said a couple of months ago on the Mind the Game podcast.
I essentially played out of a hesitation. So for me, I didn't have to 6, 7 hard dribble moves to get to my spot. I could just skip, hang the ball, keep it away from you, and just ask you, coming or not.
This is something Shai had mastered before he ever played in an NBA game. He'd hesitate over and over again, just waiting for his defender to bite before getting around them with that burst of speed. Much like Nash, he preferred to hang these dribbles on his left side, and if his defender didn't react, he'd use that space to drive left. But what made him so advanced was what he could do when his defender did react. He could immediately go between his legs and instead drive right, again generating a paint touch. He could use that hesitation to step into a pull-up jumper, or fake the jumper to once again create a right-hand driving lane, and the way he could so quickly read what his defender was trying to do, then react accordingly, to me was the biggest sign in what he'd one day become. To be a creator at the highest level, you have to have a wide array of counters. And in order to put those counters to use, not only do you have to have the skills at your disposal, you have to have the mind and processing speed to know when and where to apply each move. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Shai is on a short list of the best players in NBA history when it comes to that game of cat and mouse against a defender. He's got the brain of a quarterback with the way he reads, reacts, and adjusts, but with the tools of a running back with the way he starts, stops, and jukes his way into the defense. Of course, in the film room, you can learn so much in relation to how defenses want to approach your game, what they're looking to take away, what they're willing to give up, and what you can do individually to take advantage. But in the heat of battle, all of these decisions have to be made within a fraction of a second. Repetition goes a long way, and that's why all of these great scorers consistently grow and find more ways to counter defenses with age. However, there's something to be said about the innate mental ability to process defenses in real time, which is ultimately what separates Shai from his peers. And all that's to say, he had it from day one. The right hand hesitation gets cut off, so he goes behind his back. And before his defender can even react to a left-hand drive, he's already stepping back. Just look at how much space he was able to create in less than 2 seconds. That's what makes him so special. What he does to NBA defenses today with the constant downhill pressure and automatic paint touches is exactly what he was doing to Summer League defenses in 2018. And thanks to that lengthy frame of his, that processing speed especially stands out on his finishing around the basket. After getting around his defender, there's a 7'2" rim protector in the middle of the restricted area. The timing and angle on this layup has to be so precise just to avoid being blocked, let alone dropping for 2 points. And he consistently found those angles, extending his long arms to avoid bigs and kissing it off the glass. But what about those plays where he finds a way to get deep in the paint, then doesn't really have an angle? A few things immediately stand out. Firstly, his ability to play off of 2 feet. Take a look at this play from 2023. Shai starts to drive down the middle, and as he feels he's about to get cut off, he drops a shoulder into his defender's chest while gathering. Then he throws an up fake to get his defender in the air before stepping into a layup. Now compare that to a play from Summer League. Again, he attacks the middle, and again he looks to drop the shoulder. He's not as physically strong though, so that doesn't create much space, yet he's still able to get to that up fake and step through for a layup. Those shoulder bumps have become a staple in his game. In the rare event his first step gets closed off, he's often looking to create contact to help gain some separation. Like I said, this has become more prominent as he's filled out his frame and added strength, but even at a slender 19, he could bump defenders out of his way. And as we all know, when he's bumping a defender, more times than not, he's looking to create space for a mid-range jumper. Over these past few seasons, Shai has turned into one of the most prolific mid-range scorers we've ever seen. Of course, he's got the handle to get wherever he wants to go on the court, and the shot making to rise up over any defender, but he also relies on a special set of athletic traits to create separation. First is his ability to stop on a dime. I think he might actually have the best set of breaks we've ever seen, so with all of that starting and stopping, he can access short jumpers basically whenever he wants. This was there from day one. Even with the head of steam going towards the basket, he can easily slam the brakes and shift all of his momentum, leaving him with tons of space. One of the reasons he's able to decelerate like this is because of his flexibility. Just watch his back leg on this right-hand drive. As he goes to pull back to his left, his knee is nearly touching the court, which is what allows him to shut off his momentum and get to a jumper. You'll routinely see his back leg get into these weird positions. It happens so fast that you don't even think about it. Then when you freeze the frame, it looks like he's taking a knee. For any normal human, this is an uncomfortable spot to be in. For Shai, it's a step back jumper. His movements weren't quite as sharp back then, but he could still hit those awkward positions. When he starts to drive right and gets low, that back knee is hovering off the court. That allows him to quickly pull back and redirect into a drive left. Then when he stops again, notice how both of his ankles are nearly touching the court instead of planting on the bottom of his feet. That's another sign of his flexibility that helps him stop on a dime and create space. Another physical trait he often relies on as a mid-range scorer is his strength, which I already talked about with his use of shoulder bumps. This is one area that wasn't quite as obvious ahead of time because you never truly know what'll happen when you fill out a wiry frame. So I understand why there would be a level of concern here. Sure, he was comfortable initiating or playing through contact, but it wasn't anything like what we're seeing today. Besides that though, he appeared to have the entire package, and his ceiling as a mid-range scorer would ultimately be determined by his development as a shot maker. He shot about 42% from mid-range as a rookie, then he shot 45% as a sophomore. He hovered around that range for a few years until 2024, when he finally took that jump to over 50%, and he hasn't looked back since. And what's crazy is that he's creating these shots in basically the exact same manner as he was back then. He starts his attack with a hanging right hand hesitation. He stops on a dime and crosses back to his left for a drive, only to slam the brakes and pull up for a jumper. With all of that said, I actually think the most advanced part of Shai's game before his rookie season was the way he operated off of ball screens. Like I talked about earlier, he was constantly playing from a hesitation, and that allowed him to read his defender while simultaneously manipulating screens to his advantage. This is another page straight out of Steve Nash's book, baiting defenders into picking a side, then attacking in the opposite direction to create open space. Here's a really good example where he uses a right hand hesitation to set up his defender before driving left, which forces contact with the screen. Then he goes back to his right to attack a drop big, and when that lane gets taken away, instead of picking up his dribble early or stepping back into a jumper, he drops a shoulder, separates, and finishes through contact. What stands out most to me though was the way he could operate at different speeds. If his defender goes under the screen, that's his cue to turn the corner and attack that space on his way to the basket. Then if his defender chases him over the top, now it becomes a brief one-on-one against the big, where he'll showcase his advanced in-between scoring. Take this play for example. After getting chased over a screen, he hangs a left-hand hesitation dribble. From this position, he could pull up for a jumper, he could pass it back to the screener, or he could burst into a drive for one of those lengthy layups. Speaking of which, he didn't always come off the screen with patience. If there was an opportunity to turn the corner and attack the big in space, he'd waste no time, and that becomes especially tough to defend when you consider that even if the big is able to recover, chances are they're leaning, and now he's stopping on a dime for one of those mid-range pull-ups. His use of pace off of screens also really helped him as a playmaker. Because it was nearly impossible to speed him up or slow him down, it always felt like he was a step ahead of whatever the defense wanted to do. Like on this play, again he sets it up with a left-hand hesitation, and when his defender chooses the side of the screen, he rejects it on a drive right. He gets funneled into the big, counters by rising up from about 10 feet out, only to drop it to his roller for easy points. So the makings of a great perimeter creator were staring us right in the face. Between the handle, change of speed, and craftiness, nobody could stop him from getting 2 feet in the paint. And if they did, he had the processing speed, athletic tools, and skill set to counter in a wide variety of ways. He could play in transition or in the half court. He could play in isolation or off of screens. And basically the entire bag that resulted in 33 points a game for a 68-win team was on display in just 4 games as a 19-year-old before making his NBA debut. And real quickly, I want to mention that some of the other stuff in his arsenal popped up in these games as well. For starters, the Clippers ran a decent amount of offense through him in the mid-post. That's a nice full circle moment, as post-ups actually ended up being a big part of his offense in the finals. And let's not forget about the defense. His length and active hands might have actually popped off the screen even more than his offense, which really foreshadowed the role he'd end up playing for one of NBA history's greatest defensive teams. So why didn't anybody see this coming? I know hindsight is 2020, and I'm sure somebody out there knew Shai had the tools to become a superstar, but think about the general consensus for a second. He was drafted 11th overall in 2018. He was traded to the Thunder after just 1 year in LA. Many scouts viewed him as a limited athlete who really wasn't NBA ready. But in 4 summer league games, I see an incredibly advanced slasher with the tools to develop into an elite mid-range scorer. I see a really advanced decision maker who's always playing at his own pace. And ultimately, we all see the raw, incomplete version of an NBA MVP and all-time great player. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out the Hoop Venue podcast and my social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Shai. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.